Hi everyone! So today I'm going to do another voiceover just because it seems to work the best that way. The video has been sped up twice, so it would have been about half an hour, and I just thought there is no need for it to be half an hour. I was just chatting a bit too long and getting a little bit distracted by a few things, so yeah, I thought 15 minutes will do nicely. So I'm going to use this foil Quill Freestyle pen, and it's the standard by Mayan Memory Keepers. I have recently added it to my art tools, and it's a really neat little tool. And today I'm going to be using a different technique. I'll try to put a little card in the right top corner where I have used it with a stencil, and today I'm going to use it with a clear stamp, and you can use, here I'm showing as well, with the rubber stamp as well. So I've got this quite an affordable stamp set there of a bumblebee, which will work really nicely, a bunch of pens that I might doodle with at the end, and a little of the gold foil, which comes when you buy the tool. So what you need to make sure is that your tool has been heating up for at least 5 minutes, so it's ready to go. It's a USB cable, so it's not a socket plug-in. It goes into your computer or one of those chargeable compact battery things. So first of all, what I'm going to do is create a watercolor wash, which will be fairly simple. And currently I'm not into too many bright colors. So I have picked the Mayan Blue Genuine and Ultramarine Turquoise and Payne's Grey, all three by Daniel Smith. The sketchbook I'm using today is the Midori MD notebook, and I just showed you that there is a yellow bookmark. When it's a yellow bookmark, it's the non-cotton paper. It's a little bit thicker than their cotton paper, and also it's more off-white, and the other one is whiter. So that's the difference. The difference also, of course, is then how the watercolor behaves. I'm not too huge of a fan how the watercolor looks on this paper. I find that it works much better on the cotton notebook paper. And so first of all, I am going to create a wash, and you'll see actually when the watercolor is still wet, it looks relatively okay, although it moves a little bit different as it does compared to the cotton notebook by MD. But specifically, once the watercolor dries, it kind of dries into a more matte type of a watercolor, almost losing its transparency, I find. It looks more like a watered out gouache, yeah, I'd say. So now you can see how bright it is, and then it almost will be soaked into the paper when it dries. I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, you still can use watercolor in this on this paper, in this sketchbook, just a different look. Now it's time to dry everything. So this is very important to make sure that before you move on to the second step of this little art journey entry, we need to dry the watercolor completely. So I tend to dry to the point where there's only these few little puddles of watercolor left, and then I tend to take like a dry napkin or tissue and just pick that color up, and that creates these kind of little pockets, which looks really nice. Again, visual texture. And I'm just showing you here that it would be good to protect the page after, because it actually buckles it. So you can see there the page has been buckled underneath as well, and it buckles a lot more, this paper, than the 100% cotton notebook by MD, which is actually a thinner paper. So go figure how they do that. It's something to do with the component of the paper, I suppose. So I'm getting my bumblebee ready, and now it's time to get the acrylic blocks, and then I need the foil. So I had a little piece of that foil left. Luckily I didn't throw it out. I really hate wasting and things like that. So if I have a little tiny piece of something, I'll keep it to use in another project. What's important is to kind of stretch this foil. This foil is very thin and it's very fiddly compared to the other foils like Art Deco or, you know, maybe the Heidi Swap foils and things like that. So it's super thin, and it does need that stretching, otherwise it might just not work very well. And obviously I put it the side up, so there's like a thin film on top of it, and then you have the foil underneath it. So basically that means that you can stamp ink on top of it, and that's not going to make the foil dirty that you transfer. So the ink will stay on that clear film and the foil from underneath it will transfer. But what that does, it helps any stamped image to be very visible and clear, which you can then trace onto the foil or onto the paper or project. I had to readjust those washi tape strips because it sort of was in the way, so it wasn't wide enough for me to transfer the image. And now I'm going to use the STAS-On in black, or jet black I think it might be called, and that's an ink that actually is great for sleek surfaces. So something that would usually a regular ink would just come off or slide on, wouldn't really have a grip. This ink has some sort of ingredients in there where you can stamp onto any smooth surface and it won't move about. However, the quality, because it's a very affordable bumblebee clear stamp, the quality of this stamp isn't great, and so it kind of creates a pocket, and so where that pocket of air is created, it doesn't, oh, I'm not sure if it's air or just the way it's like thinner in the middle or whatever it is, it just doesn't stamp properly. So then I pulled out my Sizzix, I think it's called Perfect Stamping Pad, and it's got a bit of a give, so it's softer. It's done a better job for sure with it than before, but still in the middle it wasn't like 100% transferred. So it's something to do with the actual clear stamp. So never mind, I can improvise, and what you'll see in a minute, I will be doodling my own pattern anyway to personalize it a little bit. So I've got the pan nicely heated, and now I'm just going to line out the legs first, then I'll move on to the antennas, the head, the body, and then eventually the wings. Now, my only criticism for this tool, and it's exactly what I thought I wouldn't like before I even bought it, is how it's designed to be thicker on the part where you're supposed to hold it. And I understand that the technical part of it had to be probably designed that way. However, in practicality, it gets in your way. So for you to see exactly what you're doing, you have to lean over it and have your face directly over. So when I'm filming, I obviously can't do it because you'll see my head, you won't see the art project. So it's very challenging to use in filming. And yeah, so that's really my only criticism for it, because it does work nicely and you can do and create a lot of lovely projects with it. Just a little bit challenging to see what you're doing from a side because it's such a chunky, knobby kind of style of the pen. And there I'm just going over, and the good thing is when you're using the washi tape, when you first peeling off to check, and you can do this throughout the project, you can peel off one of the sides and then have a look if you missed on a spot, or if you want to make somewhere a little bit, add a little bit more of the gold foil. You then place the foil back on, make sure it's nice and flat and stretched, and just correct it. So there I am, I'm just picking it up from one side and checking, and I can see there are a couple of bits that didn't transfer very well because probably I didn't see it. Now when you apply the black ink, it is hard to see from underneath, especially if it's a permanent one like this, whether the gold has been transferred onto the paper. So if you do it without the ink on there, you see the gold transferring onto the paper and you're left with a clear film above it, so it kind of detaches it. With the black ink stamped on it, it makes it a little bit more difficult to see. In fact, you can't see anything. But yeah, the other tip I would give is to use some sort of a map. That looks really nice as it is. It's just showing it to you that you can use it maybe somewhere as a little embellishment. Is the Bible Mud by Faith, what is it called? Something Faith? Oh, Illustrated Faith, that's right. And yeah, so that helps with the indentation, because if you don't, it will create pressed lines on the following page, which is not a great look at all. So that's why I pulled out the Illustrated Faith mat. Whatever you have, but this seems to work the best for me. So here I'm just doodling away, using different pens, gel pens and pigment ink pens and whatnot. And this is the this was the Caran d'Ache water-soluble graphite pencil in 3B, and I just went over it with a little bit of water, and then of course the gold gel pen, which is the Signo Uniball broad tip. Just a little bit of doodling here and there to bring things together. That's all that I did, and here you can see how pretty that little bumblebee looked. And yeah, it's as simple as that. I got my archival ink in shadow grey ready to stamp the date, and that is that. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and see you soon.